The presentation, the main presentation, was particularly profound in my opinion. I'm not a mathematician, but I think I picked up a great deal of insight that can apply across disciplinary lines, and I like to just draw attention to some of those themes. The first and most important one for my own profession, that is law, is the element of ambiguity. Early on in the last century, I think it was Holmes who basically made the point that law, like life, is uncertain. Now, that was a profoundly heretical statement because basically people want to freeze and reify the definition of law as stable and unchanging. But he was basically trying to show that that law, and therefore legal thinking, needs to be radically revised. And that gave rise to a deep but unappreciated development in legal methodology. And this is this question of ambiguity, because when you looked at law from this point of view, for every legal rule, you could find its antithesis. So that created a bit of a problem because it looked very much like Hegelianism or Marxist dialecticism, but in fact you could just demonstrate it by taking the contracts or the torts or the property or any field of law and demonstrate that law came in complementarities. That is to say, they came in opposites or they came in correlatives. And that obviously forced lawyers to think and think creatively. The output of that was that lawyers had a tremendously important role to play creatively in the construction of the New Deal state in the US, although that's not as well recognized now. And it is still a matter of great disputation because conservatives associated with the Republican Party see these methods of creativity developed by lawyers in solving problems as subversive of the established and stable institutions that benefited the few and not the many. So just one point to make here, this element of ambiguity, which is tied to creativity, may have many, many more dimensions outside of mathematics, and I think in law you'll find that as a contested domain. Then there was the question of deep thinking. And it's a problem, what is mind, what is the brain? Is creativity, does it have some causative physiological roots, or is it something else? But our speaker didn't want to go to the metaphysical as Jung and others might have done. But it is the case that that the characteristic of human progress and human change and the dramatic revolution technologically and in almost all conceptual systems has been a function of creativity, of the ubiquity of creativity. So we know that creativity is intrinsic to the way we made, the way we think, the way we look at reality. And therefore the deep thinking question, I'm not sure that's the best way to put it, but there are other difficult issues to explain. For example, the mathematician Ramanathan developed the most advanced mathematical equations in his sleep. He claimed that a Hindu goddess taught him mathematics, gave him the equations, he wrote them down and sent them to a professor at Cambridge. And this was considered, in fact, many of his equations are still being used today by modern quantum physics. Einstein, of course, claimed that a great deal of what he emerged with came in the form of dreams. Laswell, one of the most creative of the social scientists of the 20th century, insisted that creativity was an absolutely indispensable component of problem solving. I mean, if you're trying to solve problems, how are you going to solve them unless you are creative about finding the best and most optimistic and most useful solutions for the improvement of the human condition? And he basically, to a few students, at least including me, he suggested that when you think through a problem deeply, you you may come to a point where you can't go further. You go to sleep. You sleep on the toilet. Or you actively cultivate a method of free association. You allow thoughts to come and go as they choose, and then an idea comes up, and the idea happens to be pretty creative and original and out-of-the-box solution to the problem that you're looking at. And then finally, when we looked at conceptual systems, there's obviously an analogy of conceptual systems to the more historic issue of myth. And we do know that myth is tenacious in human relations and so on, and also difficult to change. Now, Kuhn came up with an ingenious way of stimulating change that's somewhat more rational and explicable than simply the intuitive sense of change. But I think there's no question that the solution to the most pressing problems that we now face on a global basis will require disciplined and careful thought, deep thought, and an ability to mobilize creative solutions to secure the ends that refer to the enhancement of the human prospect. Thank you.